This is the developer report for Celestial, April 30th. We skipped a week. We had some user testing. The top region of the deck builder seems to make sense and be working very well. Some of this is overwhelming. There's just so many cards and so many options here. And then this avatar, before it being called deck avatar and being up here, was a little bit confusing. So some of this needs work. Another major thing is that looking at the deck at the bottom, even as an experienced player, it's unclear what's in the deck. So being able to quickly parse that is a functionality that we want. So we also did some looking at the in-game UI, and these buttons controlling a lot of functionality, but not having clear titles. So pass sort of makes sense, but it's the same size as recap, and it's a red color. And what does recap mean? And then when the story is playing, change to skip and play. All of that was pretty confusing. And what we're trying out now is having one very large pass button, because this is one of the main elements that a user would interact with. And that then changes to how many points the player has earned during the nighttime. And hopefully that will solve some of these issues. But we do need to make this look better and test it out and then figure out how it's going to look on different sizes. So that has been one major change. Adding the daytime nighttime is another change, just because it was unclear for the players what stage of the game you were in. And we're starting to make changes so that's a little bit more clear. And some of that will also be hopefully final art will include some elements that make it clear that it's nighttime. Maybe there will be a moon, or maybe there will be people gather around to listen to the story, whatever. But at least in the short term, for testing out how players engage with it, this felt like a good change. And so there's some local changes that aren't on live yet that are changing how the deck looks. So now each of the decks, this is a potential change, each of the decks would look like a count of each of the cards. And so you could see the full deck, and if you hovered, you could see what the cards are. This is pretty consistent with other card games, and I was really pushing for having all of the functionality on the same screen and being able to quickly throw together a deck and then hop into a game and make changes and copy it. But that's a little bit too focused on power users, and the screen just ended up feeling pretty cluttered among other issues. So there's probably going to be a list of your decks and then pre-made decks. And so the user won't be so overwhelmed by visual information. And then you can choose to make a new deck, or you could choose to edit an existing deck. You can change the deck's name and the avatar, and you can save the deck or jump into a game, something like that. That's still being figured out, but this seems like it's going to be a positive change. And then I'll also show how this looks in the single player mode. So you have the cards that are required for a given mission or chapter or whatever you want to call it. And then you have cards that aren't. And so you can take these cards out, but the ones that are required, you can't take them out. And I think that would have been very hard to display with this. You could have had some cards grayed out or had them separated or something, but this just wasn't really working. And I think another place that this kind of shows up is when you look at the deck here. This is also pretty confusing. And maybe this, for most players, just isn't a screen they're going to look at very often. But hopefully figuring out a way to make this look a little bit better too is something for the future. So that's what I've worked on in the last 2 weeks, and I've also been pretty busy with other stuff. For the next week, I think not exactly. Oh, I think I'm going to do more hover functionality. So having more objects on screen that a player might not immediately understand, such as the keywords, have some hover text, and maybe some amount of images in there too to make it clear for newer players what's going on, because that's really important. And the cards are gonna have different like hit areas within which it would tell you about Inspire. So only if you hover over Inspire would it tell you, and not the entire card. And then it's a little bit unclear what I'll be working on for the rest of the week. I think maybe some of the tutorial stuff also needs to get done and is ready. And then figuring out different screen designs with the UI artist. So yeah, thanks for watching.